Hello everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today we have another block in our AZURE quilt project that I want to share with you. Now this one is a little more difficult, so our video could be a little bit longer. We'll just see how long it takes to do and how the editing comes out for our final length, but we're going to start on this one and show you how to do it right after this. Okay, welcome back. Now today's project is block number 56, King David's Crown. And I wanted to show you the little pattern description here. Yes, you can see that pretty well. And it's a fairly simple block as to how many pieces are in it and how large some of the pieces are. But it's a little more complicated in how it's put together. So that might be what challenges us today and where we'll learn some new things, and it might take a little bit longer. Let me tell you about what I have already done. This particular block, I've got an extra copy of it. Let's see if I can grab it. Here it is. So you can see, here's the diagram and then the pieces. We've got, oh goodness, we've got 4, 5, 6, 7 subunits that go together. Now 4 of those are single fabric pieces. And then the center portion of it is a little more condensed with smaller pieces of different color fabrics. It's putting this piece here onto this piece that's going to be our troublemaker, and we have to do that 4 times for this block. So let me tell you where I am in the construction and what we're going to cover today. I have cut out, here's 3 of those large pieces, and I have one of the sections here for this. Yeah, you can see that. It's hard to tell what's on camera and what's not on camera. I have one of those cut out here that we're going to work on, and then I have completed one of those sections, the center section, which is just regular straight line piecing on the paper, and I've added one of these on here. Adding this on here, there's a Y seam here and a Y seam here. And you've got to get it lined up or it's not going to lie flat for you. So let's start by putting this piece here together, and then we'll move on to the more complicated pieces. Now this is fairly straightforward. It's got 2 of one fabric and then one of the other one in the middle. And I've got it sewn, or I've got it pinned right now for that first piece, and we're just going to get started. Whoops, something's catching there. I don't know if it's this pin or what. It was. Okay. So that was a simple little stitch here. Oh, there's another pin. I didn't realize that. Okay, simple stitch. We've got that one piece there. Now, what I can tell you is one of these just made it over the seam line, but I think we'll let it stay. I think that it's going to be so tiny you might not be able to detect it after the fact. Let's press it and take another look just to be sure. Okay, it is going to catch underneath the seam, so I think we're okay. We'll just pay special attention that when we sew that there, we give it a nice sturdy seam. So we've got this, and I'm going to pin this just so it stays in place. And then we need to add this piece, and it's going to need to go like this. So we need to turn it over this way, and that should do it. So let's check, make sure that we've got that. Now, on this side I can't tell, but if I turn it over this way, I can tell they're both under there. So we're going to go ahead and sew, and then we'll check it out. We can always redo it if we need to. Okay, we'll take out those pins first thing. Okay, problem city. Look what, well, maybe not. Let's press and then we'll decide. I sometimes think that the angles on this foundation paper piecing is the hardest thing to master, because the angle that you sew it on can determine whether you've got enough fabric or not. Okay, so if we look at this one's going to be fine. This is the one that was a little bit short here. And then this one, I think that one's going to be a problem because we don't even have enough here. Well, that's the seam allowance. I think we do for the stitch line. I think maybe we'll let it stay. And I'm going to use my little cutting mat here. To pin it. That way it doesn't scratch my light board. Because you don't want to scratch your light board. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put the basting stitch around and then we'll trim it. We're stuck on a pin. That's some wild basting, people. Let me tell you. Okay, basting's done. Let's check out what we've got. Look at that crazy basting. Okay, we've got our mat on top of here, so we're just going to trim away. This one's already been trimmed down here. And again, we're trimming just outside of that dotted line. Interesting. We may have to get a pair of scissors for that little corner area. All right. I sometimes think it's easier just to trim these with a scissor. Okay. All right, let's dump those. Those are too small to be reused again. And see where we are. Okay, we have this piece and then we have this piece and we need to join them. And we're going to just use our regular, sorry, I got a cord problem. Our regular technique to do this, which is to put a pin through the point, a pin through the point on both sides. one of these fabrics we're using here is a very densely dyed fabric, and it is almost impossible to see through it. Okay, so those are lined up. We'll give it two clips and 2 pins, and then we're going to stitch. From one wild extreme to the other. Very small stitches and very long stitches. Okay, those are together and they matched up beautifully. Look at that. Now, we need next step to put these pieces on. And it doesn't really matter which one comes first, I don't think. But what we're going to do is we're going to put it on here because we need to take some of this paper out before we do here. And in this section, we probably don't need to. So we're just going to pick one. Let's see, the pattern says that on C2, we should be matching up G1. I don't think there's a difference, but just in case there is, we'll start there. We need to put right sides together. So let me show you how I did that. The first thing I did was I pinned a dot to dot right at the point there on each one at the top and the bottom. This is right where it turns. And we're going to put those together so that we know they're lined up. And then we're going to put 3 of these clips in between. We want to capture this appropriately. We'll be able to take that one out. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put one on the other side. We'll take that pin out, and we're going to start sewing there at the point. That is really on the point. Our stitch length is correct. Now, as we get down to that bottom section, we're going to take our pin out. Our clips are still in place here, here, and here. And we're going to sew right to that turn. We're going to leave our needle down, take our clips out, and we need to pivot. Press our foot up. We need to pivot them so that they can make that turn. And let me tell you, with the paper in here, it is a challenge because you're trying to make paper curve. So we're going to take our pin and come in at the next point on our piece. We're coming in right here. We're going to put a pin there on the top, and then we're going to try to match it up to the point on the bottom. Did I get close? I got close. How close am I? Close, close, very, very close. Okay, so now I've got those matched up, and I'm going to put a clip over here. Okay, and we're not going to be able to get a clip here. I'm sorry that you can't see this exactly. I don't have a third camera, so we're just going to have to do it as appropriately. But what's happened is we've sewn from this dot here down to here, and then we've manipulated that fabric, so we're going to be able to sew from here to here, and then we're going to do that again to sew out to the outside. It's very close quarters, it's a lot of material, it's a lot of paper, it's all in that one little spot. So just take it really, really slow, use your pins, use your clips, and just do little segments at a time. Okay, so let's do this flat segment. And I actually held that pin in place as long as I could. Okay, so we're halfway down, we're to that second point. Now we've got to pivot again. So press our foot up, clip off, and we're going to pivot. And we're going to have to fold it out over here, fold it in over here. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, I think this is running. We're going to try this to see if you can see it appropriately. So we've sewn down here to here, and now we need to pivot to get this seam down here. So the needle is still down, and we need to stretch this one around to meet here. And like I said, it is difficult. Our presser foot is up. We just need to keep rolling that paper and fabric around. And I honestly think that each piece we add is going to become more difficult because we've got more paper to deal with. So now we've got them lined up, we're just going to put a pin in here and see if we can catch the end of this one. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll line that up, clip it there, we'll clip it about halfway, press our foot down, and then we're going to start stitching. Now I am holding this pin in place as long as I can, because that's what's going to keep us lined up. And we'll put a little backspace in that one. Now let's see how we did. It looks like a mess, doesn't it? But on the other side, I think we have it. We're really close to the camera there, but I think we have it. Excellent. And I hope you can see that really well. Now let me readjust my cameras back, and I will move on to the other two pieces. Well, that was an adventure in camera rigging, but I think we were able to let you see exactly how that goes together. I'm just kind of finessing it in place here. All right, so we have almost all the block done. We just need to add the 2 other pieces. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to, number one, take out the paper in this curved seam that we just sewed, because I've got one piece of paper pushing us one way and one piece of paper pushing us the other way, and it's not going to lie flat until we get the paper out of that seam allowance. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to probably sew on my 3rd piece, and then perhaps bring you back as we finish up the 4th piece so you can see what the whole block looks like. But the first task is to get this paper out here and this paper out here. So I'll do that. I think I'll put some of this on as fast footage, just in the overhead. Take part of those out. Okay, I've got most of that paper out there. I'm going to take some more out because this block is a little difficult to deal with. Okay. And then onto this side. All right, and let's press this a little bit. It'll be easier to deal with. I think my iron shut off. It wasn't pressing. I wanted to tell you something else. When you're working in these corners, you're going to need to clip those so that they stay flat. And I'm just cutting out a generous notch. You don't want to go past that seam line. But if you cut out that notch like that, that will stay much flatter than not. Get it? Not. Okay, so there we go. I still need to take out the paper here and press it. I'm waiting on my iron to get hot again. So I'll work on the paper. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. I have some noises going on outside that I wasn't expecting quite this early. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. There's really nothing I think that you could benefit from seeing me take out paper And we've demonstrated how those other pieces go in. So I think I'm going to go and work on getting those paper pieces out and getting the other two sewn on, if not entirely, mostly. And then we'll drop back in to see how it finishes up. And then if there are any other tips to give you, I will at that time. Well, hi, I have finished this block pretty much. Let me get rid of this trash here, or I'll be wearing it. Okay, so we're working on number 56, King David's Crown. And let me be perfectly honest. If you are working on this project, do not start on this block, because it has been the most challenging of all the blocks I've done. And it gives nice bang for its buck, but it is difficult. It's difficult because of you're having to do those double Y seams and then get everything to fold back under. It is difficult. So let me show you where I am. Remember, this is the little sketch of the block. And in the overhead, you should see my finished block. I've still got a lot of strings and threads and so forth, but this is it. And I will tell you that I did take this to my big iron and use some spray starch to get it to lay flat and look as good as it does right now, because it's a challenge. But it's done. Now, like I said, I would not take this one on as the first one. And had I known this was as challenging as it was, I probably would have left it later in the process to do, so that we all could gain more experience in what works well and what doesn't. That being said, I think it turned out great. I'm very happy with it. We are at the right size. I just checked that. And the seams all came out. We don't have any buckles or folds or tucks or anything like that. They matched up beautifully. It's just a challenge. And let me tell you, the other thing, even after I got it all together, was the challenge of how to press it, because you cannot press it all the seams to the dark side. So what I decided to do, let me flip this over, is press two opposite sides so that they were pressed to the dark side, and then the other two just let them press out, because there's just no way. You can see that sometimes when we did these, the seams stayed open and sometimes they didn't. We've got one that kind of caught a little bit. So all kinds of things. The other thing is taking out the paper in the seam allowances before, well, taking out the paper except for the seam allowances when we were sewing on those, the D, E, F, and G pieces, which are the outside pieces, the white pieces, did make it much easier to be able to manipulate that fabric. Remember the close-up we had? So that it worked well. That worked great. But then the problem was keeping it lined up, because what you gain in foundation paper piecing by having the papers and having the lines and all, when you take them out, you lose that. So there was a fine line between making it easier and making it harder. But it is done. Now I'm happy to say that we've preserved all of our points. We should be able to get all of those in when we do our seams to join them to the next block. There's one in here that might be a little bit close, but I think good enough that it works for our purposes. Now what I'll do is I'll trim this block up a little bit, especially here on the corners, so when we do get ready to sew it together, we don't have quite so much bulk. And I left the paper in right here on the outside to preserve that seam line, so that when we get ready to sew it, we'll have that. I've tried to take off the paper everywhere else, and I'll go back and do that again now that I have pressed it, which probably means I need to press it again. But you can see there are places like this where we still got paper in here, and it will really do better if we get as much of that off as we can. So that'll be just a few minutes sometimes that I have that I can sit down and work on getting paper out. Probably right before I tidy the room, so that if I need to run the vacuum, I can go ahead and do that at the same time. Interesting little tip there. So that kind of concludes this block. I found it interesting. I'll be honest with you, I did get a little frustrated about 3/4 of the way in when I was trying to put on those last white blocks. One of them went on pretty well. The next one got on there crooked and it had to be ripped out and re-sewn on. But there's our block, and I think it's really pretty. I think it's a great use of the fabrics together, the way they play off of each other. We've got the really dark solid one in the center, and then the pattern ones, and then as you come out from it you have lighter fabrics. And another one we just did recently was Greek cross. So if we do Greek cross and King David's crown together, we'll kind of give you an idea of what this is going to look like as we get all of our blocks together. So I'm very happy with that. I hope today you've learned something. I've learned something, and that is always one of the goals here, is to have fun and make something pretty that we can enjoy and also learn something, because that will help us the next time. If you enjoyed today's video, please give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You may want to consider a membership, because our members in our upper level quilt top, which is only $2.99 a month, get early access to our videos. And at the time we were recording this, we are almost 5 weeks out posting. So some of the projects that we may be just starting here on the channel for you to see right today, we may have 5 more weeks of those out there that you could go ahead and see and use that to your advantage to sew along or see before others do. If you choose not to be a member, no worries. Everything will remain the same and you'll be able to see all of those videos. It'll just take a little longer. Thanks so much for joining me today and supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.